looking at the Janome 7034D 4-thread serger, and we're going to be doing some troubleshooting tips and tricks. So the number one issue when you're serging and things start to go wrong is most likely you need to rethread the machine. So if you open it up and everything looks good here, give it a dial forward so you can see both loopers. If everything looks good here, before you rethread the machine, I would suggest looking at your tension dials. When you thread your machine, we really want to make sure that all the thread is sitting in the dials properly. And a quick way of making sure that is happening is if you hold on to the top and bottom of the thread and just give it a pull, and that's going to pull the thread into the tension disc. And you can do that on each one. If you feel the thread sit in properly after you do that, then you can try stitching again. If that's still not working, I would suggest rethreading your machine. The more you rethread the machine, the quicker you get at it, and you'll find it's easy. Like now I don't even bother trying to do the tie-off method. I just cut my threads and rethread because it's just so much quicker and easier to thread it from scratch. If you're hearing funny noises and it's not your thread, run your dial, pull it forward with your hand crank to hear where the noise is coming from. Sometimes it's a good indication that one, you need to re-oil your machine, give it a clean, give it an oil. Another is that one of your needles might be bent or have a burr on it. So I would suggest at that point to switch out your needles and see if that makes any big changes. Sometimes you'll notice that your stitches are skipping or that your serge isn't just as crisp or nice as you thought it should be. That's also an indication of needles needing to be changed out. And it says right here on your machine which needles you should be using. And your machine came with a pack of needles, so you should have some spares. Now, if you're serging something and you're finding it comes off your machine with this wave, maybe it looks like that, or maybe sometimes you will get one where it's not as wavy, but you'll notice that it's kind of bowing out that way instead of nice and straight. If you find that, then your differential feed needs to be adjusted. And to adjust that, you'll see I have this one that is wavy and this one that is nice and flat. And the only thing I changed between these two things is my differential feed. And if you will remember from my previous videos, our differential feed is how quickly the feed dogs in the front are feeding the fabric through the machine. So it will come back here. I'm going to pop up the presser foot just so you can get a better visual on what's happening. We have two sets of feed dogs here. This rear set of feed dogs always moves at the same rate. This front set, you can change and adjust the rate of how quickly it feeds your fabric through, and this often causes a wave. You can use it to gather, you can use it for a couple different things, but the wave, you can, when you don't want it, you can just adjust this. So I'm going to take you to the side of the machine. And it's this dial here. So sometimes you need to turn it up, sometimes you need to turn it down. What I suggest is grabbing some scraps of the fabric you're using and just try a couple different speeds and see which one works the best for your fabric. I find that there's a big difference between knit fabric and woven fabric and lightweight fabric. So each time I put them on or I try a different fabric type, I end up having to try a whole bunch of scraps to get just the right serged edge. So sergers aren't very complicated. There's a lot of dials and a lot of different threads going different places, but it really, especially with this machine, will be a workhorse and you will get many, many years of use out of it. The issues that happen, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, is a rethread issue. That simply, every time I run into an issue, I rethread, and typically that clears up the issue. Make sure that you're taking proper care of the machine. I made a video on how to clean and how to oil your machine. I encourage you to look at that and do that regularly. This serger will keep you going for a very long time. So I hope that you have learned a couple things about how to sort out issues with your serger, and thanks for tuning in. Thank you. Bye. When I clean my machine, I like to unthread it completely. So what I'm just going to do is snip the threads at the top, open up the covers, and then pull my threads through. And this lets us see everything that we need to within our machine. Oh, tied a little knot there. And why? There we go. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get in underneath it and clean everything out. Okay, as you can see there, here, we have a lot of buildup. So I just take a brush, any one that you have that'll fit into your machine, and just start to brush everything off of all the different parts. Your serger gets really dirty and dusty, and make sure you're dirty and dusty for... Your serger gets really dirty and dusty because it cuts all your fabric as you are sewing it. So you're going to have a little more than normal within the machine. So just give everything a good little brush down and make sure you're pulling everything to the front of the machine. A lot of different people will suggest using compressed air or canned air. I strongly urge you not to. There's a lot of different chemicals in the compressed air that can get into your machine, and it can really make things a little bit worse. So the good old-fashioned brushing works like a charm. Another thing that you can use is a vacuum, and there's different attachments that you can get that will suck everything out of your machine. Okay, and we also have this knife here, and what I like to do with the knife is just disengage it and swing it down, and as you're swinging it down, you can see there's more fluff there, and then you can see that there's fluff on the blade that you couldn't get at before. So I'm going to really clean that out, and then we can swing that back up, and we're going to turn and look at the other side of the machine. There's not as much dust in here, but you can access a little bit differently. So give it a bit of a clean in here, brushing it out, finding anything that you see, brush it off. Okay, the next thing that we can do is remove this plate so that we can get into the feed dogs. So your machine came with a screwdriver just for this purpose. I'm going to remove this screw and slide that out. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of oil in there too. But give that a good brushing under there, getting anything that's stuck in between the feed dogs. And you can also, if you want a little more access, is remove your presser foot. So there's a button at the back that you can take that off. And that really opens up the entire inside, and you can get all the fluffy bits out. So once you have that done, I often take a little cloth, like a jersey, really soft jersey knit, and I'm just going to give it a wipe down to take off any of the extra little parts, fluff that's in there. Get it nice and clean. This is also a great chance to change out your needles if it's time to change them, and you just remove those screws, you just loosen those screws, and the needles come right out. So you can do that as well. Okay, so once I have it clean, we also want to oil it a bit. So you want to use a high quality oil of some sort, of sewing machine oil, And there's a couple different places that we are going to oil. And these are all in your manual if you forget. So we're going to only apply 1 drop at a time, not too much. So I have a nice bottle of oil here, and I'm going to put it in a spot there. And then this is on our upper looper, and in here and in here. And then we are going to put some right here. Any place that really is moving a lot. Okay, and then over here, we have a couple different points. We're going to add oil right in here, and in down here. And then we're going to turn the machine, and we're going to put some right back in here, which is hard to see, but the diagram is in your book. And so that is going to have your machine nice and oiled up so that it doesn't stop working, and keeps everything moving smoothly. The serger has a lot of different moving parts. And then to put everything back together, we're going to put the plate back on and make sure you screw it back in tightly. And there you have it. You would re-thread your machine, and what I do before I serge again is I just make sure that I have a scrap piece of fabric, and I run it through the machine a couple times just to get everything moving and to make sure that there's no residue left on your machine. Thanks for joining us. It's really important to take care of your machine because sergers will last a lifetime. So the better care you take of it, the longer you're going to get out of your serger. Have a great day.